We have notes and coffee. You may want to pour yourself a cup of coffee. This might be a while.
Hello, welcome back to Keeping Up with the Dyers. What we've been trying to do is do like a farm video, no matter how short or how long it might be, in between our story videos. That way it's not all just us sitting here talking to you about us. Like mix in some farm content in there too. Especially since that's what we want to do after our story's over with, so getting better at it now so it's watchable then. Hey Bub, how are you?
Good.
We have an audience, that's okay. I guess we're gonna have to get used to that. We're gonna do this. So this video is about Alabama the second time. So we'll get into that. We'll open up with exactly what I promised you, what happened with that house. So we had to sell that house because there was no way we could afford to keep that house. You have to realize this is 2014. So the housing market was not strong, especially in that area in Ohio. It just wasn't strong at the time. So we were very concerned about being able to, kind of renting the house was completely out of the question. We didn't think that was going to happen. Who rents a farm? Like if you want to have a farm, you buy a farm. We would rent a farm. We thought we were the only ones that would rent a farm.
Yeah. So here's what we did. We took the sign that was in the yard when we bought it. I think you put duct tape over the other guy's phone number, and we Sharpied in our own phone number. Because we're classy like that.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And then, what we didn't mention in our last video was that Avery did have an amazing church group that he was a part of in Colorado, and the kids and I were blessed with an amazing church family in Ohio. And that big beautiful house we utilized for everything we possibly could. So someone in our church family said, you know what? My dad drives for the local Mennonite community. This house looks fairly Mennonite. Like I think it would be marketable to their community. All the bedrooms, great big house. We kind of had like a little farmette going on. And we had a lady that we loved to buy produce from who just was a stone's throw from where we lived. So we wrote down what the house had to offer, what we wanted for the house, and we took it to Lena and we said, if anyone in your fellowship would be interested in our house, it's coming up for sale and we'd love to sell it to them.
Speaking of that church, a whole bunch of folks from the church that Bernadette and the kids went to came out and helped us prep the house to leave. Like cleaned, painted everything.
Yeah.
We could.
They helped us box our things.
You know, load our things.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of help on that front. But that's exactly what happened. So Bernadette told the lady right around the corner where we bought a lot of produce from. She told some friends of hers, and they called us after we had left.
Yeah. So we probably contacted Lena maybe 2 weeks before we had to go.
Yep. Buttoned up the house, gave the keys to my parents because they live not very far. We headed to Alabama.
What month was that?
This was March. This was towards the end of March.
Yeah.
They called us very quick after that. We closed on the house on August 23rd, my birthday. And so that's how we got out of the house. Super blessed to have been able to sell in that market during that time frame.
Yeah.
We don't take that for granted, and we've thanked the good Lord many times for being able to do that. I want to talk about how we wound up at the place we were in Alabama the second time. A friend that was at Fort Rucker still from the first time we were there, and he knew the mayor. And the mayor knew these folks who were going to be renting out a farm because the matriarch of the family was getting up in years, and she was going to go live with one of her children.
They weren't ready to sell.
Yeah, they weren't ready to sell at the time. They wanted to rent it.
And it was a house with 100 acres, which you don't normally get to rent. And so Justin is quite a jokester, if you know Justin. So he texts Avery when Avery told him we're headed back to Rucker, and he says, I have the place for you. It's a house with 100 acres.
And I thought, you gotta.
And Avery texted back, "You're kidding me. Don't toy with me, man. You're kidding me."
Don't play with my emotions. That's too good to be true.
Yeah.
But it was true. So I called the guy that was going to be the landlord, and we talked, and he really liked where we were coming from. He really liked the idea of our family and what we were into, and we came with a good recommendation from Justin. Justin has a great reputation in that area still to this day, which is not a shocker. Justin is a great person.
Yeah.
I love him, and his wife Michelle, and all of their children. The only problem was we still had this house, again, we hadn't sold it yet, in Ohio. So I had to have the conversation with him, and I had to tell him, I was like, "Sir, we really want to do this, but here's the bottom line. Like,
here's what I can afford until I sell my
here's
house.
what I can afford to pay for this house until I sell mine." He worked it out with us. A 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, ranch with a carport. It didn't have fences, and it had an older barn. But we rented it for $600 a month until we sold our house, which is amazing. I mean, that they let us do that.
We have notes and coffee. You may want to pour yourself a cup of coffee. This might be a while. We love South Alabama.
Yeah,
so
we loved it the first time, and we're like, hey, let's just get out here. And so we knew we wanted to farm, and we thought we were going to get out of the Army again. For a long time after I got back from deployment, I had a hard time readjusting because I was constantly thinking about the future. The thing that I kept in my mind, I was getting past this time to get to that time, and I had never been like that before. I'd always been a very laid-back person that was just like, roll with the punches. Hey, I'm just here and I'm enjoying myself. Something changed inside me. Living in that mind frame for a year and a half, I lived in that mind frame, and I could not shut it off. And I mean, even to this day, I still deal with a little bit of that, but I've gotten a lot better. But I felt like I had to get everything done. I was constantly in the future somewhere. So when we got there, I was just like, we have to get everything, we have to get ready for after we don't have an income in the Army today. One of the first things that we got was hogs again. So Bernadette raised out those hogs previously in Ohio, and she loved them. You know, we had always heard about how, you know, hogs can be very dangerous, you know, to have kids around.
Don't let your kids around them.
Don't let your chickens around them. Don't let your cats around them. No, if a chicken goes in there, those hogs will eat it alive. And that is probably true for the way some people raise hogs. But we're talking like we scratch bellies daily. Bernadette loved to smack their hams, like their butts. She would just scratch their butts and smack their butts, and she would talk to them, and they would get all excited. And one time they actually
excited. They jumped their barrier.
And we wanted to raise large blacks, so we went to a reputable large black breeder
in South Alabama.
Yeah, in South Alabama. You know, 30 or 40 minutes away, and we bought 2 breeding stock females. They're called gilts, if you're talking about pigs. They haven't had babies yet, that's why you call them gilts. Once they've had babies, they're called sows.
Yeah. Kind
of like a cow is a heifer until it has a couple calves, and then it's a cow.
So we did the large blacks because the way that they were created, their eyes are covered by their ears, so they their eyes are protected and they can forage better. And we were very interested in having an animal that would be able to go through the woods, because pigs are really good at getting rid of invasive things and cleaning up fallen nuts and debris. And
they can get a lot of their diet requirements.
Exactly. So you don't have to feed them.
Yeah, we didn't want to have to buy a lot of grain and stuff.
And also, they are considered a bacon pig. So some pigs
they have
are lard
long bodies.
And that section of the body that's elongated is where bacon comes from. So that was why 2 of the reasons that we were super interested in the large black.
We're going to raise them until they were old enough to breed, and then we were going to go back, and he was going to help us find a boar
that was not related to them.
That was not related to them, so that we could breed them.
Yeah, that was actually our 11th wedding anniversary gift to each other.
Yeah. We're funny like that. Yeah. We'd only ever bought pullet chickens, which means they have been sexed, so you know that they're females. We went and bought a bunch of straight run, so that means you don't know what they are. They could be roosters, they could be hens.
And we got a lot.
Yep, and we bought them from a few different places, and I mean, really the way it happened was we went to get a few, And this guy, he bred and hatched chickens. So he had more coming out of the incubator very soon.
To hatch, and then he hadn't sold.
And he hadn't sold all of his previous crops. So we had gone with the exact amount of money we needed to buy the ones we went there for.
Right, I think it was 30.
And he had 50 more, I think. And I was just like, I think I had like $10 more than what. I'm like, hey, this is all the cash I have. He said, that's fine.
I don't want to keep feeding.
So he sold us this whole bunch.
80 chickens.
Of chickens for the price of 30. We wound up having Red Stars, French Copper Morans, some Jersey Giants. So yeah, we had the hogs, we had the chickens, all of them.
Yep.
And then also when we went to get the hogs, those folks were super nice people.
They asked if they could give our kids
if they could give our kids a gift.
And I was expecting a Tootsie Roll.
Yeah, it wasn't a Tootsie Roll.
2 ducks.
Yeah, 2 ducks.
And a comic.
The kids named Knick Knack and Paddywhack.
Yeah.
And then they also gave us 2 blue slate turkeys. So we named the ducks Knick Knack and Paddywhack, and we named the turkeys Dog and Bone. So we had the 2 goats we bought, plus 4 now because
they had
babies in Ohio. So they all moved with us.
The babies moved with us, yeah.
But let's get into our questions.
Okay.
So what we learned, what we loved, and how we left it. Let's start with what we learned, and I've done a lot of talking.
So it's my turn.
So if you want to take some of
now?
our notes, I'm going to take a few sips of coffee and catch my breath.
This property came with a neighbor who was such a blessing, who came over almost every day. He was an older gentleman, and he had been kind of like the steward of the land for the couple as they had aged.
Yeah, but when we moved in, the day we moved in, I think we had 3 neighbors stop and say hi. That's kind of neat.
That was. And so this gentleman, he went by Shoestring. That wasn't his real name, obviously, but he went by Shoestring, and he legitimately came over every day to visit with me and the kids, or to help with something, or just to continue because he was used to taking care of the property. And I remember the very first time he drove us around to show us everything, he was like, now I'm going to slow down here because there's a big hole right here. And we're like driving, and to me it's just grass. And I'm like, how do you know there's a hole right here in the middle of nowhere? Like, this is like 3 feet tall grass. How do you know there's a hole? And lo and behold, he was right. We would go around the hole. And then after we had lived there for a while, we had a vehicle that we drove around the property too. And I'd be like, oh guys, this is where the hole is. Go around. And like it was amazing how we got to know the property. And those water washouts or whatever, you just knew them. And it was so funny. So, Mr. Shoestring helped us a lot with the fencing. He gave us a lot of different techniques, and just from his experience, his years of doing it, he was really good at setting a straight fence line. He knew a lot about like shortcuts and tricks about how to get fence poles out if you weren't happy with where they were. He helped us come up with a system to keep the electricity running so that we had hot wire all the way around and we didn't have to walk through a gate. Like, he got our aisleways done without us having to dig trenches, which probably would have been our how we would have done it. We probably would have dug to get the wire through, but he had another plan, and he was super helpful. So we learned a lot about fencing with Mr. Shoestring. We figured out the system of this aisle needs to be as wide as that opening so that the gate can go from this side and it can close off the aisle, and then the horses can get into this pasture.
That's really hard to describe.
Yeah. That may not make sense to you.
Maybe someday I'll do a video and
walk around.
We'll talk about
yeah.
how that can work.
Yeah.
Because I think that'll be interesting for those of you who
want to set up rotational grazing. Yeah. And that was another thing that we learned there. We did rotational grazing much better there, and it was interesting to observe the horses and the land. There definitely were spots on that land that were like the ice cream truck. Like, that was their favorite place to be. They were going to eat that first. There's no way they were going to go over here. And I like to say, like, some grass is broccoli to horses and some grass is ice cream. And everybody, you eat your broccoli because you have to, but you're going to take the ice cream first if it's there. It's one of the reasons that we rotationally graze, because they would
kill the ice cream.
They would kill the ice cream. They would eat it as it came through the ground, completely ignoring the broccoli. So then broccoli goes to seed and outgrows the ice cream. Anyway, so we learned a lot about rotational grazing and watching the land and really figuring out how to kind of do the dance with the grass so that they constantly had something to eat and we could bring in as little hay as possible.
And then I also learned kind of about grounds maintenance. There was a tractor there that belonged to people who own the place. But they left it there for me to use, and I was able to use it for free. And I had a bush hog, a rotary cutter. So I would maintain the property with that. And I learned a lot about that, which, you know, the only way you learn about stuff like that is with experience. You can't explain how to take care of 100 acres to somebody. They just have to live it.
Yep.
Chicken harvesting, because we had all those roosters.
Yep.
This is kind of funny. I used to do music ministry at the church from time to time, and so one morning I just got up there and I was like, anybody who wants, I know this sounds funny, but anybody who wants to learn how to harvest a chicken, you're invited to come out to our house, and we had set it up. Anyway, Maddie would like to say something that we learned.
Do not eat chicken on the day
You gotta
that
bend
you
down.
harvest.
So Maddie said, word of the wise, do not plan to have chicken on chicken harvesting day, because chickens do not look good, do not smell good, do not taste good once you've spent a whole day harvesting chickens. And she's not wrong. She is correct. We learned how to harvest chickens.
Yes,
That's
we
another
did.
thing we learned.
With the goats, because we had the 100 acres, we had lots of different types of land. We had a pond, we had swampy land, we had a lot of edges of established woods, not what was the planted pines. And so we took the goats through and we gave them different types of forage. And can I help you? Work them into like the edges of the property so that they could get some of the bush, because goats like to eat from the neck up. Sheep and horses drop their head and eat, and cows drop their head and eat what's on the ground, but goats prefer to browse, to eat with their heads up. And so that was one thing that we got to do, because our land in Ohio, we didn't have like a wooded area really to put them through. We had a couple trees out back and we put them through that, but after like 3 days it was done. So there in Alabama, we had electric poultry netting, which you can move, and we had a solar charger, so I could take them just about anywhere, and as long as the sun was shining, they would stay contained within their fence. And ironically, when they didn't, my favorite goat in the entire world would literally come to the back door and bleat for me to let me know that her wild babies had gotten out. That happened more than once. She came to get me to tell me, those children are loose. Come get these kids. So that was funny.
Those are the high points. Let's get into what we loved, and I'm gonna let Brenda tell this story.
Okay, so here's...
See if she doesn't cry.
Oh, now I'm a challenge. So, like I said, for our 11th wedding anniversary, we gave each other hogs. And for our 10th wedding anniversary, we were in Ohio and Avery was in Kuwait, and he sent his mom to bring me blueberry bushes because we thought this was going to be our forever home. So we planted the blueberry bushes in Ohio, and actually as we pulled out from Ohio, I was bawling. We're leaving my blueberry bushes and you gave me those for our 10th anniversary. When we got to Alabama, it was March 24th, so it's in Alabama it's really warm, but it was not warm in Ohio. So the grass had been growing there and it was tall and the land was like kind of crazy. And so after we had been there for a while and we had gotten it mowed down, we kind of got to walk around the property and figure out the layout of the land. We're like, these are like bushy things, but it's like April now. These are like bushy things. These are interesting leaves. They're smaller. This should be like a fruit bearing thing. They were blueberry bushes. They were blueberry bushes that were taller than us because they had been planted 20 years ago. Now, there were 5 established blueberry bushes right there. It was like the Lord went before me like 20 years earlier, and he already knew that we were going to leave those blueberry bushes, and I just felt like he was telling me, it's okay. You just keep following me. I have something for you. I will never take something away without filling your cup.
We camped. We had bonfires. There was a pond there, so we fished. And there was a creek that also ran through the back 60, and it was beautiful. Like the kids would go in there, and there was little swimming holes that were perfect for kind of wade swimming.
Yeah,
they weren't super deep, but the kids had
4
a
to 7-year-old
blast.
children.
So
yeah.
those are all things that we loved about the property, and then like Bernadette has talked about already, Shoestring was there, and Shoestring was just a good friend and a good person to have that had lived a lot of life
Yep.
and could show us young not very experienced farmers a few things, and so we
Exactly.
learned a lot from him, and we loved that.
Yes, and every time we move to a house, we always say, I wish there was like a book that came with this house so we could understand why did they do it this way.
Yeah.
Well, we got a book that
Yeah.
time, and his name was Shoestring.
Shoestring was the book that came
Yes,
with that
because
property.
anytime there was something with anything, if there was something with the wiring, he'd be like, well, I helped with that wiring. Let me tell you, I remember how we did that or whatever. And it was just like, you're the book. You're the living book. All we have to do is ask.
And then how we left it, we saw so much increase in those pastures. They just took off, and different species of grasses that had never grown there started to grow. It got thick and deep green. It never burned because it was always just so thick the way that we were rotationally grazing it with the chickens and the horses.
Yeah.
And the goats, really, sometimes put them out
they
there.
would do, yeah.
And that was probably the first time where we actually really saw the rotational grazing.
Yes, and the success.
Yeah, just be, wow, that's real. Like, rotational grazing actually does heal land. I kind of feel like we can give ourselves a pat on the back and say
Right.
we did that property justice. It's better now
Than it was.
than it was when we got here.
Yeah, and the family who we were renting from, the children came back and they were pleased with it as well, which was a big accolade. That was,
Yeah.
we were grateful for that experience to get to meet them and to have them say, "Wow, we like this."
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
very reassuring. It was good to hear that we were doing a good job from somebody who had
a vested interest.
a vested interest in it. Thank you. We'll pick up again with. We obviously did not get out of the Army there.
Right.
We went from there to North Carolina. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe.
And if you have any
Comment.
questions for us, leave a comment.
Yeah,
We'd
yeah.
love
If
to
there's
know.
any specific questions about anything we've talked about at this point, please leave your comments, and we're pretty good about answering them pretty quickly. So just give us an hour or two, and we'll probably check it, and we'll get it answered. Y'all have
A blessed day.